What is up, YouTube? thyAshes here, bringing you another video, and today I want to talk to you guys about the new announcement for Call of Duty for the CWL and the excitement behind 5v5 Call of Duty competitive. In front of me I have the article from Charlie Intel that kind of summarizes what the entire stream was about for those of you who didn't watch it. So it kind of gives me some guidelines so I can help kind of break down some of these, but the main talking point I really want to comment on is 5v5 and then the things that they're doing to support having a 5v5 structure. Because one of the discussions I've seen going on Twitter, especially from the Gears community, is how 5v5 a lot of people felt hurt the Gears of War scene, and how you can't take the current success or the growth of the Gears of War scene and credit it to 5v5. You have to take in a lot of other factors, but overall a lot of people feel like 5v5 actually hurts competitive Gears of War. And I can understand that, because right now, if you look at Gears of War, the talent is stacked on pretty much the top 3 to 4 teams, with OpTic, EchoFox, Ghost, and Reciprocity or World's Best kind of holding the top 4 spots. A lot of, or most of the European talent is stacked onto Space Station Gaming. Most of the talent, like the known talent from Mexico, is stacked on OpTic Mexico. So you kind of really have these top teams from each region controlling the talent pool for these games, and people are feeling like because of that, because it's so top heavy, a lot of the scene is dying down in terms of the player base, in terms of the amount of competitors, in terms of the amount of teams, and that's true. It's not false that the scene is starting to kind of simmer down. We're coming up on 2 years into this game, 2 years into this game next month. So it kind of makes sense for the game to start coming to the end of its lifespan, and we probably won't see Gears of War 5 until next year, probably like fall of next year. So it's kind of expected. There's a lot of factors I feel that go into why the game is starting to lose its competitive players and teams, and the amount of players and teams, I guess, and why I don't think it's really 5v5 that's the issue. And I think that there's other factors that go into it, and I think Call of Duty is addressing those factors. So the first thing is the path to pro is what I'm going to kind of overall put everything under this overall umbrella, I guess, that I'm calling Path to Pro, where you look at games like League of Legends and there's kind of a clear path that you can take to get to the top, to get to that LCS level. For Counter-Strike, and I'm naming 5v5 games specifically, same thing. Dota, same thing. There's these ladders and leagues and tournaments that you can kind of grind your way up into those upper echelons. Now, the other thing that those games have in common, other than all being 5v5 and all being successful esports titles, major esports titles, is the fact that they're all on PC. And I'm not saying that in terms of the war of PC master race versus console or whatever the case may be. I'm a PC supporter for sure, but it does open up the doors to a larger player base in terms of how many people have access to the game. Dota is free, League of Legends is free, Counter-Strike is $20 I think on Steam, and you can often get it for cheaper than that. So it's not one of these $60 blockbuster titles for a console that becomes a little bit more difficult to get your hands on. It becomes a little bit more difficult to have proper communication for teams, whereas like for example, my team uses Discord, so we need a PC at our setup with our Xbox, whereas other teams for who are in Counter-Strike, they're doing everything on the PC already, or League of Legends, everything's on the PC already. So there's a lot of factors that where PC opens so many more doors to allow a wider player base. And the key part of this is the wider player base. If a game has a large player base, say a percentage of your player base on average is how many play competitive, say 10%. So if you only have 100 people playing your game, that means 10 people are going to be competitive out of the 100 if it's 10%. If you have 1,000 people, that means you now have 100 people playing competitively. That's 10 times the other game. So you look at a game like League of Legends, which has a massive player base, a game like Counter-Strike, which has a massive player base, Dota, massive player base. There's this common trend of the player base size influencing the number of people competing in the game. And when you have more people competing, say 10% of that 10% are the top tier talent. So if you have 10 people, that means one person is the top talent. If you have 100 people, that means 10 people are the top talent, so on and so forth. So when you look at games and you compare them, Gears of War is more on that lower side in terms of the player base compared to League of Legends, compared to Counter-Strike, compared to Dota. So when it's 5v5, it feels like a lot of the top talent stacks on the top teams, because a lot of the top talent always stacks on the top teams, except in games with a larger player base, there's more people to fill more rosters and keep the top more competitive. So Counter-Strike, there's hundreds of thousands of players that compete, and in those hundreds of thousands, there's probably 12 teams right now in contention that could beat each other at any point for like the top team in the world. Whereas in Gears of War, because it's so much smaller, you see it condensed down to like 4 rosters in North America or in the United States, 1 roster in Europe, 1 roster in Latin America, 1 roster in Australia, Asia Pacific region. So I believe that adapting 5v5 for a game like Call of Duty, which is kind of on that cusp of being able to support the larger team sizes, can work. I think that it adds a new twist to rosters. It adds a new twist of viewership, excitement, because we don't know how 5v5 is going to pan out, and that's a coin toss. You know, that's a risk that they're taking, but with probably proper consideration behind it. Now, Call of Duty has a larger player base than Gears of War, and is often a pretty large player base, and assuming that the game is actually good, which all signs are pointing towards Black Ops 4 being one of the best Call of Duty games that we've had in a long time, there's no reason that the player base is going to die off rapidly, especially when Call of Duty games last about a year, to the point where 5v5 is going to make a dent on rosters. Now, Call of Duty has had events where correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down below, but 200 plus teams have been at events. So if they're selling that many team passes and you take these rosters and make them 5v5, you're still going to have hundreds, like over 100 teams at these events. So I think that, and then that's assuming, that's, you know, that's looking back at old Call of Duty games that aren't as good as we are hoping that Black Ops 4 is, based on the beta and everything that we've experienced so far with Black Ops 4. Now, Gears of War, what can they do to kind of compensate? Well, you can lower the game to 4v4. Obviously, that's an option. You could lower the game to 3v3. That could be an option. But realistically, I would rather see the efforts put into, rather than us adapting to what our current status is with a smaller player base, I would rather see efforts and resources put into making Gears of War 5 a game that encourages growth as a player. It encourages longevity and replay value in the game, and investing time into the game, and which will then feed into that sense of growth, and then just new content. If you look at Gears of War 4, most of the maps, all of the maps that we've released or that we've received as DLC have not been adapted other than Diner into competitive play. Now Forge Blitz, you can argue, because it's a change, but it's not really a change, it's just a small one. But a lot of like the new maps where you have like Dawn, a lot of the new launch maps, I mean, we're running on 7 maps for the competitive cycle, and it's just not, it's just nothing new. Nobody liked the new maps that were released, and a lot of the new maps weren't even new maps, they were just remakes. I mean, you have Harbor Dawn, or Harbor Mist, or whatever, Harbor Haze, which is just a rehash of a map that we got a year earlier for the same game. Blood Drive and Canals and Gridlock and all these maps that can't be used for the current competitive game type. So you're not getting this fresh content that is enticing player base and creating changes in new dynamics, where you look at games like League of Legends, and they don't even have to release new maps, they just release new characters and change the meta because of different buffs and patches and things like that. I just think there's a lot of ways that the content given in Gears of War could be improved so that we retain a large player base And because we have a larger player base, there are more people competing, and because there are more people competing, there's more top talent, so it doesn't all get stacked up on the top teams. It spreads down so that the top 8 teams, the top 12 teams, the top 20 teams are competitive with each other. And obviously I'm speaking from some sense of bias because I feel like I have and have had in the past iterations of our roster some of the strongest rosters in Gears of War history. So I fully note that my opinion and my perspective may be a little bit skewed, but I still feel overall that if the proper resources were applied towards making the game have the proper I guess content, like I said before, you know, a leaderboard, a proper matchmaking and ranking system so that the sense of grinding earned you a rank that shows your actual skill level, not just how much you can play the game, that there's a path to pro, so I know that if I'm playing ranked matches and I'm experiencing exactly what competitive is, for example, I'm not playing a ranked escalation match on Slab, a non-competitive map. I'm playing exactly what the pros are playing. I'm grinding my way up. I'm working my way up the leaderboards. I'm getting noticed by I'm calling challenger because that's what League of Legends always called it, but academy level, you know, semi-pro teams. I'm working my way up and getting my way out there. There's a way other than game battles that or the 2Ks on Sundays that I can get my name out there and get noticed by the pros and get attention to myself. Now what Call of Duty is doing, if you look at this article, is they're doing in fact I don't even know if they're showing it in this article, but they're planning on doing a whole amateur circuit, not circuit, but a whole amateur like league of its own. So you have the main stage 1 pro league, pro series, whatever you want to call it, that will encompass teams in 2 different groups playing each other in the same groups, playing cross group throughout the season. And then you have this amateur league similar to how League of Legends has the Challenger series in the past, now called the Academy teams. So they're taking the right steps to encourage, okay, you can get your name out there and play on one of these teams, have something to play for, not be getting stomped by pros for money. You have a chance to earn your own money as an amateur player and then get noticed and get a chance to play on main stage at events and not have to deal with open brackets all the time and all of that stuff. So I really think that Call of Duty moving to 5v5 is exciting. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. I think the game types and the maps are going to play a big part in it as well. But the fact that I haven't played the beta, so forgive me, but from what I've seen, there's a lot more, you know, you're playing a role. So I think that'll add a new dynamic to Call of Duty that we haven't seen before. And I overall think that this game is going to be super interesting. So please let me know what you think about everything that we talked about down in the comments below. I'm hoping to see some interesting discussion going on. But yeah, that's 100% my opinions and my thoughts on the 5v5 versus 4v4 matter for both Call of Duty and Gears. I'm excited to see what the future holds for Black Ops 4. I'm excited to see what the future holds for Gears of War 5 further down the line. And I'm excited for Blackout, but that's a whole nother story. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel down below. Hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all in the next one.